1. Welcome to another edition of the PhinManiacs.com podcast. I am your host, Louis Sung, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Chad Ronnebaum, and we have Ron Kniff, who is now a member of our website, as well as his own podcast, Unsquish the Fish, and I'm sure we'll have Keith Beebe calling in eventually, so he'll show up at some point, I hope, maybe. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. It depends. And later on tonight, we have a treat for you at 8:30. We'll be getting a call from Troy Drayton, former Miami Dolphins tight end. We were going to talk some tight end stuff, and of course, we're going to talk about some other things going on within the Miami Dolphins organization. There's lots of things going on, and there's lots of roster moves being made. So I'm actually curious what he thinks about the whole Daniel Thomas being back again thing. So we'll see what happens with that. So, but before we get into any of that stuff, I want to make a formal announcement, and I'm very happy to announce this. The PhinManiacs are officially teaming up with the Miami Dolphins, along with two other podcasts. I believe it's NFL Female and the On the Fin Side folks. We're going to be joining up with the Miami Dolphins to give more digital content. So, once a month, I believe, or so, something like that, we'll be having players going to be brought in for interviews and things like that. So, it's going to be very exciting for us. So, it's still in the preliminary works, but I'm very excited for what's going to be happening, and I want to thank everybody who supported us all this time and giving the Dolphins the inspiration, I suppose, to choose us for this platform. So, guys, we hit the big time.
Very exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It'll be fun.
All right, so with that settled, let's get right down to business. One of the things that I wanted to discuss on tonight's show is that I wanted to discuss some players who we think could make a comeback with the Adam Gase as the new head coach. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on with a lot of players who we feel that were not properly utilized in any way, shape, or form, and now they're going to have a chance to have a clean slate with Adam Gase at the helm. And presumably, these players are going to be a lot better because the coaching is a lot better. We all know how much coaching matters in the NFL. Like, we cannot summarily dismiss exactly how much coaching does or how much coaching can hinder a certain player. You look at Ryan Tannehill, you look at Lamar Miller. He was hindered big time by what Joe Philbin did and what Bill Lazor wound up doing to him. He didn't get to really run the ball that much, and he got to the point where he wanted to leave Miami, and he ran to Houston first chance he got. So it's obvious that coaching has done a lot for a lot of players, and not always in a positive manner. So I want to ask you guys, who are some players you feel could really make a comeback per se, like a revitalization of their careers, if you will, with Adam Gase at the helm? Like, they have a clean slate. Who do you think could potentially come back strong? And I'm going to start with you, Chad.
Well, I mean, I think the obvious one is Tannehill, but I'm going to go with Jordan Cameron just because he clearly he was a very talented receiving tight end in Cleveland, and I was really excited about the acquisition of him last year because Miami just has not been very effective at stretching the seam of the field or sending the tight end down the middle of the field. And when you do that, it opens up a lot of other options in the playbook if you can effectively do that. And they never really did it. And so Gase has been really effective with using tight ends in his career as an offensive coordinator. And so I feel like there's a really good chance he will utilize Jordan Cameron's talent a lot better than what Bill Lazor was doing. So you could see a dramatic change in a statistical standpoint of what Jordan Cameron will produce.
I definitely agree with the whole Jordan Cameron aspect of it, and we'll probably get more into him specifically a little bit later. But how about you, Ron? Do you have anybody you're looking at who could potentially revitalize their career with Adam Gase?
Yeah, I've got 3 guys, but two of them I'll kind of group together. Billy Turner and Jamil Douglas. Mm-hmm. I just expect those guys to be better coached in general. Just coached on what they're supposed to be doing, when they're supposed to be doing it. I just expect them to look like better NFL football players because of Gase. And another one, and I know this is going to sound weird, but let me explain after I say it, is Rashad Jones. Why? Because he'll actually get to play safety and not have to play linebacker the whole year. That's as simple as that. He'll be a better player because of it, because he'll be playing in the position he's supposed to be in and not trying to cover up for so much horrible play at the linebacker spot.
And actually, I'm going to go here with this. I'm actually going to say something along the lines of a Jamar Taylor. And the reason I say that is because I have never felt that Jamar Taylor was bad. I think that Jamar Taylor's his talent was never the issue, in my opinion. The issue was he was never truly developed well. Like we've seen what Jamar Taylor can do. He's done good things. When you see him tackle somebody, that guy hits the ground. It's always fun to see Jamar Taylor tackle people, and he gets so hyped up. He gets so into it. His ability in coverage, however, has been suspect. And we know already from the coaching staff's past that these sort of things happen when coaching staffs just don't know what they're doing. A lot of players have suffered. Jamar Taylor, I feel, is one of those players. At this point, I would actually like to see if Adam Gase, who looks at these players and tries to see the best from them, I would love to see if Adam Gase realizes that maybe Jamar Taylor would actually work better as a safety. Because if you think about it, Jamar Taylor, his ability in coverage is suspect. Like, he can't stay with his wide receiver. He gets burned every once in a while. Of course, everybody got burned a lot last season, so I digress on that point. But if he could be somebody who could come in and be the last line of defense, somebody who could make that desperate tackle, somebody who could slam the guy into the ground like a safety should, then suddenly Jamar Taylor is not as useless as he appears to be. Suddenly he could be somebody who, at the very least, could act as depth and good depth for a team that is needing secondary help. And God knows the Miami Dolphins need help in the secondary. There's no depth there whatsoever to speak of, even with the recent waiver claim. So if Jamar Taylor could be shifted over to safety, I really feel like he could actually get something going back in his career.
I think it'd be tough for him to do. Not that he couldn't do it, but one for the Dolphins would be they don't have a desperate need now at safety. I don't think he's going to be capable of beating out like a Walt Aikens or Michael Thomas. And you're right, Lewis. Jamal Taylor is probably the best tackler last year anyway. The defensive backs, he is a good tackler, but I don't know that he would be big enough at safety to come up on a routine basis and tackle running backs as well as cover guys like Gronkowski and stuff because of his height. He's just not that tall. But overall, I think this is the make or break year for him. And whether or not Gase, I mean, it'd probably be actually Joseph that would be the determining factor. I don't expect Gase will do a whole lot with the defense. It's just not his background. But it's going to be an interesting year for Jamar Taylor because he's been pretty well written off for the most part. So I don't know. I mean, will that give him a roster spot, or is he better off to focus on corner? Is going to be a tough challenge for him.
I would look at it like I understand that Adam Gase is mainly an offensive guy, but if you're going to be a head coach, then like it or not, you're going to have to realize that you're going to have to cover all aspects of the team. That includes the defense. And if you are somebody who looks at film, watches film, like when Adam Gase watches film for his offense, he kind of has to look at the defense. He kind of has to look at the defense as well to make sure that he knows what the offense is going to be able to do. He has to look at the defense and say, okay, so this guy has a weak point here. Let's see if what we can do on offense here to take advantage of this. So it's not like he's clueless in what defenses can do. He can see what defenses are strong at. He can see what defenses are weak at because he has to be able to know these things in order to create the game plan that the offenses are going to have to utilize against them.
Yeah, I agree, but I don't know what he quite does with Jamar Taylor. I mean, I'm hoping that Adam Gase is able to put players in positions that suit their strength. And yeah, Jamar Taylor is good at running defense. I don't know if he's capable from a coverage standpoint to cover smaller guys like an Edelman, or the slot type guys. And I just don't know if he's big enough to cover the guys on the outside. And so he's kind of in that mode right now of what do you do with him? Because he's more of a physical, tenacious type guy that you'd like to see maybe put more in press situations. And he was thrown into a situation where they played typically more zone than press man, and so I'm not quite sure what they're going to do with Jamar Taylor yet. I'm confident, they're going to have Maxwell out on the boundary. I'm pretty confident they're going to have McCain playing slot and Lippett out on the boundary, and I don't know where Jamar Taylor fits in that equation right now. I mean, I still feel strongly, based on all their offseason moves, that more likely than not they're going to draft a defensive back high in the draft who will be another guy. Obviously, if he's their number one pick, would be high up in there. So right now, my general impression is he's going to be on the bubble right away in camp to make the team. And so it'll be a big offseason for him.
How about you, Ron? Any thoughts on the Jamar Taylor part?
Yeah, I'm leaning more towards Chad. I think he's a bubble guy, a roster bubble guy for sure. And it'll be close depending on what they do in the draft and how those draftees look as to whether he even makes a team or not.
It's going to be tough, but I think that if he's given the right circumstances, Jamar Taylor could still be very useful to the team. And it's not like Miami is loaded with options right now. So there's also that. And that's not exactly a ringing endorsement, I know. But we have to kind of take things where they come. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be getting a call from Troy Drayton. We're going to talk a lot of Dolphins stuff. And it's going to be fun to have him back on the show again. He's visited the show a couple of times now, and he's a real good friend of ours. So it'll be fun to talk more Dolphins with him. So until he does call in, let's see. Roster moves, guys. Guess who's back? Do I even have to say it?
Back again. No.
Okay, well, we got to talk about something here. So
quite possibly the most unpopular free agency move I've ever seen.
The worst ever? Like, really? You can't think of anything worse?
Oh, no, not the worst. I said most unpopular.
Well, same diff. Like,
Does it almost make you question a little bit? I hate to say this. I don't want to be a negative Nelly, but to make you question a little bit Gase's judgment on the 53-man roster when he's a big fan of Daniel Thomas.
Well, he's not the one who called in. He's the one who gets to choose who stays and who goes after training camp. But it's not like he's the one who necessarily told Tannenbaum, "Go get Daniel Thomas."
You think he had no influence? Didn't he play for him at Chicago?
I don't know if he had no influence, but I'm sure he had. I'm sure it's not like it was. I'm not sure. I'm sure he wasn't like ringing Tannenbaum's throat. You better get me Daniel Thomas or else. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I believe this is our guest. Caller, reveal yourself, please.
Yeah, this is Troy Drayton.
Hey, Troy, what's up, man? It's great to have you back on with us.
What's going on, guys?
Well, we got a lot of stuff to talk about, Troy. Lots of news this past week since we had our last show. A couple of the familiar face has returned. That's actually what we're talking about right now. Daniel Thomas is back in town. So, since you're here, I'll get your thoughts on Daniel Thomas. I know he's gotten a lot of grief from Dolphins fans in the past, and I don't know if maybe you think some of it is warranted. But what are your thoughts on the return of Daniel Thomas?
I kind of have mixed thoughts, but I think when you look at what else is out there, you look at your immediate need for a veteran running back. You're going to get out of Daniel often. You're going to get a guy who's a one-hit runner. He's going to be a downhill runner. But he hooked up with the team and got that. So, he hasn't really done much for the team since we picked him up as a second-round pick. And I know people are looking at that and they're saying, why are we picking up Daniel Thomas? But, I think you have to look at it like this. Daniel Thomas is a guy who they're given an opportunity to try to make this football team. It doesn't say because he signed a contract that he's going to make this team. So I think you have to look at the running back situation. You have to have bodies in football camp and in OTAs and all of those things. There are some running backs like Arian Foster who we kind of kicked the tires on, but it was basically a meet and greet, and you wanted to see how well his Achilles is coming around. And I know the Achilles injury is a tough injury to come off of, especially if you are a skilled guy. But we've seen, people come back successfully, off off of Achilles injuries like Terrell Suggs. Terrell Suggs had an Achilles injury. He came back, and he was back at the top of the game. He tore it a couple of years later, but the fact still remains is that, he came back and he was successful. He got back to the top of his game. So I think, Daniel Thomas is a safe gap for this football team. I think we have to, we're going to definitely look in the draft and see what guys we can draft, what kind of people we can get in the draft. You're also, again, looking at Arian Foster. But, Daniel Thomas, you have to look at Daniel Thomas as if he is a body. He's given an opportunity to make a football team, and that's just the way you have to look at it.
It really does seem to get to the point, though, Troy, where you look at it. I really feel like the backlash would not be as bad as it was if his name had been something else. It's kind of like the situation where he just leaves a bad taste in the mouths of Dolphins fans, and now the taste is back again to taste it again. Like, obviously, he's not going to be pushing for starting spots or anything like that, but it's just that it's Daniel Thomas. He's back. Oh no, he had another one-up. He had another one-up stashed in his back pocket somewhere. How does he keep coming back? It's that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that, but I think you have to look at it from a situation of a personnel situation. Are you just going to bring in just any old body, or would you rather bring somebody back who has familiarity with the Miami Dolphins, and you're giving them an opportunity? So I think, it's one of those situations where they're kicking the tires. If he makes the team, great. If he doesn't, no harm, no foul. But, there's not a lot of running backs out there that you can get to come into football camp. And he was one of those guys. They offered an opportunity. He signed on the dotted line, and, he has to make the best of his opportunities just like everybody else. So, Daniel Thomas is, I know we have some history with Daniel Thomas, but you have to look at it from this situation. Daniel Thomas has to make this football team. It's not a guarantee that because he signed that he's automatically on the roster. So that's the way that I see it. I don't know if anybody else sees it that way, but I think people should look at it that way and, let it go. I mean, because there's not a lot of people out there that you're going to sign that you're going to get to come here and play with this Miami Dolphins football team. And Daniel Thomas was one of those guys that wanted to be here, that had interest. He signed a contract. Now he's on our team.
Hey, Troy, this is Chad Ronnebaum. Thank you for coming on the show. We've always appreciated all you do, both for the community and for the Dolphins, and always enjoyed watching on the Phinsiders as well. I have a question. Obviously, it speaks to your background, and I'm always curious. When we get players on the show that have played certain positions, what are your thoughts in general on Deion Sims? I know that the tight end position has changed a lot, even since you played. It's become a lot more of a receiving position than the blocking position it used to be. But Deion Sims clearly, at this time anyway, would appear to go into the season as the Dolphins' primary blocking tight end, especially in two tight end sets. Do you think he's got a lot of upside to him yet, or where do you see him going yet? He's kind of in that middle zone where he's in his third year, and I'm not quite sure what to expect out of him.
Well, when I look at it, not Daniel Thomas, but Deion Sims last year. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Deion Sims last year, he was on track to doing some special things for this Miami Dolphin offense until he suffered that concussion. And that concussion took him out of the lineup for, 6 to 8 weeks. And I think anytime you take a football player out of the lineup for 6 to 8 weeks, for him to try to come back and get his legs under him and try to get back to where he was, that was a difficult thing. I think, with the way concussions are, they really had to take their time on him, allow him to come back, allow all the protocols to take place. And then, then Deion Sims, I wanted to say Daniel Thomas, but Deion Sims, he had to try to get back to where he needed to be. He had to reestablish himself. He had to reestablish his place in the offense. And I think he had a position before he got hurt, because I think the Miami Dolphins had huge plans for him. But, when he finally came back, the dynamic of the offense had changed. I think the roles had already been established, and he had to work his way back into a role. And I think that's a tough way to go, especially when you get injured. And I think people are expecting a huge season from you. I think the sky's the limit for a guy like Deion Sanders, because, he's a guy that can do it all. I think, I hate to say this, but he's a throwback. I mean, he's a guy that can block at the point of attack. I think he's a guy that can get down the middle of the field, and I think he has sneaky speed. I think he has the type of speed. When you look at a guy his size, a lot of people think that because he is an inline blocker that he doesn't that he can't get down the seam and catch the football. But he's one of those guys that can definitely get down the seam and catch the football. And I think, when you're talking about Adam Gase and his offense, you look at Martellus Bennett. Martellus Bennett is a guy who can inline block, but he can also catch the ball out in the field. He can get down the seam and split the seam. And that's the way that I see Deion Sanders. I see him as Martellus Bennett. I don't see him as a specialty guy. I see him as an every down tight end. And I think that he has to find a role in Adam Gase's offense. And I think Coach Gase has to have confidence in him that, he can play that role and be effective as Martellus Bennett. So when I look at Deion Sanders, I think he's a very talented young tight end. And I think if he has a healthy season this year, he's a guy that can catch 50-plus balls and potentially have a 6-touchdown year and be really effective for us, especially down in the red zone.
Now I have a different tight end question for you, Troy. I think it's safe to say that Jordan Cameron was something of a disappointment last year, and I don't know if it's because of chemistry with Ryan Tannehill. He wasn't 100%. He didn't get the offense, or something else went wrong. But I want, from your perspective, what exactly went wrong with Jordan Cameron last season? Why was it that he couldn't, no matter what happened, it just seemed like he just couldn't get involved with what was happening?
I think, again, when you're talking about the offensive roles, the roles were established. I mean, when you're talking about the short passing game and you're talking about a lot of everything went to Jarvis Landry. And he was a guy who was a dynamic playmaker for this Miami Dolphins football team. I think when you put the ball in his hands, anything can happen. And you're talking about good things when it comes to Jarvis Landry. I think, with us running the ball, trying to establish the run, I think you just kind of get caught up in a situation where, Jordan Cameron has to find his role within the offense. And it seemed like he was a guy that could get down the seam, a guy that they can also split out, but also a guy that they would use down in the red zone. I thought that, the Miami Dolphins would go heavy Jordan Cameron down in the red zone, but this is where they didn't. And when you look at the problems that the Miami Dolphins have had down in the red zone, we've had problems in the red zone for the last 3 or 4 years, and automatically you think when you have a guy who's 6'6", 250 pounds, 245, 250 pounds, a guy that can go up and get the ball, you would think that they would use him down there. But with all the problems that we had in the red zone, kind of got lost in the shuffle. So it's just a tough situation. I can't really pinpoint wrong with him. I would have loved to seen him more involved in the offense and more involved in the passing game. But I think we had a lot of problems when it came to the passing game. We had a lot of problems protecting Ryan Tannehill, and that was one of those things as well. So I can't. Jordan Cameron, I can't blame him more so than you just have to look at the total offense and just say, hey, he needs to be more involved. He needs to have a clear, defined role. And I think if in Adam Gase's offense, he needs to have a clear, defined role in how he's going to be used. And sometimes that's on a game-to-game basis, and sometimes his role will be defined for the year. But I think he's one of those guys that if he's on your football team and you're having problems down in the red zone, you have to throw a couple balls up to him and see if he comes down with it, because this game is about mismatches. And I think if you're putting Jordan Cameron in a situation where he's a huge mismatch for whether it's a DB, safety, or linebacker, then I think you can maximize his talent. But until somebody decides that we need, as an offense, we need to make sure that we lining our guys up, or we're putting our guys in a situation to win, and you're talking about matchup situations. I think that's how you're going to maximize, guys like Jordan Cameron. That's how you're going to maximize guys like Deion Sims. And I think you're going to put the Miami Dolphins in a dynamic weapons that we can use to create mismatches. So I think it's more or less his role wasn't defined more so than it was him as his talent. That's the reason why he kind of got lost in the offense last year.
I would agree with that point, Troy. It seemed to me that what happened with Jordan Cameron wasn't so much the fact that his talent was gone. Like, it's obvious he's talented. Like, he was able to put together Pro Bowl caliber seasons in Cleveland with Brandon Weeden as his quarterback. So it's not like Jordan Cameron is a scrub or anything like that. It seemed to me that from what I was looking at, Jordan Cameron spent a lot of time doing what he shouldn't have been doing, at least in my opinion. I understand that tight ends is supposed to be able to do everything, but it really seems like Jordan Cameron spent more of his time doing blocking duties than he did actually going out and acting as a weapon. And I think that had a lot to do with his inability to be in the offense because he was busy doing something else that he's not used to doing.
No, and I think that's a fair statement. I think that's a great way to kind of look at it, because when you look at when Deion Sims is not in the football game and you need to still try to run your offense, you only have a couple. I mean, Stoneburner was a guy who came in and helped his football team, but the blocking responsibilities was relegated to Jordan Cameron. You know what I mean? So, that's the way I kind of see it. I see it the way that you see it, but you also have to look at max protection. When your quarterback's getting beat up, and you need to try to protect him better. You have to keep the tight end in. You have to max protect, and you can't send them out on routes, because your quarterback you need to make sure your quarterback is standing upright. And I think you're absolutely 100% right. That's one of the reasons why he was so ineffective last year, is because he was doing a lot of inline blocking, and I think a lot of that stuff was relegated for Deion Sims. And he had to pick up the slack of it when it came to help.
It really
responsibility that he's not used to doing, and that's blocking.
Yeah, the blocking situation has been bad ever since. It feels like it's been bad for the past 10 years, not just the past 4 years. So, I know, Chad, I know you had a question, so go ahead, man.
Yeah, I honestly don't know, Troy, how busy you are, how much time you have to follow the NCAA, but I was just curious if you follow Penn State very closely. I mean, I know it's your alma mater, but I just was curious if you saw any of those guys in the draft that you're keeping an eye on, or anybody you're excited about coming out of Penn State for this upcoming year.
I've followed a little. I know their defensive end is a projected first, late. I mean, he's a motor, and he kind of reminds me of Jared Aldridge when you're talking about a guy who has a high motor, a guy who is a power guy, a guy who's going to play for 60 minutes. So, I've liked him. He's one of those kids that flash when you turn on a Penn State football game, and I can see why teams are rating him so high. Potentially a late first round draft pick, early second round draft pick. When you're talking about our quarterback Christian Hackenberg, I don't even has regressed from his freshman year. You can blame a lot of it on Penn State and them almost getting the death penalty, and you can blame a lot of different things, but Christian Hackenberg has regressed as a quarterback, and it's a shame because his freshman year was probably his best year, and it seemed like he just got worse from there. But I think the thing that's really hurt him is the fact that he blamed the offense and not himself. You would say that Christian Hackenberg, he should take all the blame. I think part of the blame falls on Christian Hackenberg, part of the blame falls on the offense, but ultimately, when you're talking to NFL scouts, when you're talking to the people who make decisions, you have to look at it from a standpoint that, you got to put some of the blame on yourself and not solely on the offense or on the coach. And, I think he's taken a lot of heat for that, but I think you live and you learn. And I think he should have got some advice from his agent on how to answer those questions because he's really, really hurting himself. He's been inconsistent at best. And this kid went from he has the talent to be a first rounder, but he's going to have to go into a situation where he's going to have to sit like a Osweiler and learn the system and mature and become better. But he's going to have to come into a system that you're going to have to truly groom him to be your future quarterback. Now, he has all the tools. He's big, he's strong. He can throw the football. But he has a lot to learn. And I think so anybody who picks him up in whatever round they decide to draft him in knows that they're going to they got a talented football player, but it's going to take him a couple years to get on the field because I think he needs that grooming like Brock Osweiler. And I think if he's in that type of situation, you'll see Christian Hackenberg flourish because he needs to be groomed and he needs a great quarterback coach to bring out that talent in.
Ron, I know you had a question, man, so go for it.
Yeah, my question is when I look at the Dolphins, I'm always curious about what they think their biggest needs are, what positions they're most concerned at, just based off some of the moves they make. And right now I'm feeling like maybe their biggest concerns, and I know the draft hasn't happened yet, is probably running back and cornerback, just based off what they've done so far. Where do you feel that the Dolphins have the biggest concern, what they actually think their needs are?
I guess we'll see in the draft, and I know you probably don't want to hear that. When you look at visibly, you look at what the Miami Dolphins need. The Miami Dolphins definitely need a running back. I mean, Jai is a good running back. He's a downhill running back, but I think he's similar to a lot of running backs that are in the National Football League. He's a power back. He's a one-cut runner, similar to Daniel Thomas. So you kind of have two guys that are similar in style when it comes to being one-cut runners. I think he can catch the ball out of the backfield and do some special things that way. But I think he's a guy that needs a veteran running back to push him. So I think you definitely need to look at running back. I also think the Miami Dolphins need to address their guard situation. I know we got a couple guards in free agency, and you kind of got to take a wait and see type of approach. But I think you have to put a priority on protecting your quarterback. And to me, I think that guard position is a good position. Now, you want to move Billy Turner and Dallas Thomas to the other guard and let those guys battle it out. But at the end of the day, you need a guard that's going to come in and be that guy, next to Brendan Albert, our Pro Bowl left tackle. And we already have, and I think that would make a solid offensive line, but you definitely need somebody to protect your quarterback. I think you need a shutdown corner. I mean, the Miami Dolphins lost a good shutdown corner in Brent Grimes, and I know Grimes had a down year last year.
And other issues.
He had some injuries and some other issues, but at the end of the day, Brent Grimes was your shutdown corner. And, Byron Maxwell has a talent. He has a size, but Byron Maxwell came from he's a system guy. And, you have to look at what kind of system this Miami Dolphin defense is going to run, especially in the secondary. If it's going to be similar to what they did in Seattle, then, maybe Byron Maxwell might get back to the top of his game. But, last year, people were picking on Byron Maxwell, and he got paid. And ultimately, he didn't live up to the money that he made last year as a top corner. So if he can come back here, get back in the same system that he was in Seattle, and get back to form, then we're looking for somebody to come out and try to compete on the other side. I think the young guys that we had on the other side, I think, you're starting to kind of grow impatient with those guys because you want them to flash now. But I think the Miami Dolphins have to look at the cornerback position. I also think that you have to look at a middle linebacker position. I think you have to also that position strongly, despite the fact that you traded for Kiko Alonso, you still don't know if he's going to come back to top form. And I think, you're hoping that he gets back to the same form that he had his rookie year. I'm not really sure if he's a middle linebacker more so than an outside linebacker, but depending on the type of defense that we're playing, if you're putting guys in front of him to basically help these D linemen not get to him, then he'll be an effective middle backer. Otherwise, you got to go get that downhill, that big 245, 250 pound middle linebacker who's going to man the middle and be able to be that run stopper and be able to be a staple on this Miami Dolphin defense. And I know just recently they just picked up the safety that they cut from the Cleveland Browns, and this guy was a first round talent until he tore up his knee at Oregon. So I think they're looking to see, hoping that he will bounce back to being that number one pick that they saw at Oregon. So I think we're doing some things on defense. I think with Mario Williams, we've done some special things by replacing Olivier Vernon. But, you also have some other weaknesses that you can't hide that are glaring weaknesses. And this Miami Dolphins football team, and I think the defense is a lot closer to being back at top form than the offense. So, but those are the few areas where I think the Miami Dolphins need to definitely look, and hopefully they will address in the draft and, at the end of free agency as well.
Troy, I'll treat you to lunch if you can say the Cleveland guy's name.
I can't say it. Listen, I know me. I know I'm not going to butcher somebody's name. So, I looked at his name, I said, oh, goodness gracious. I said, okay. So when I see the enunciation of it, then it'll stick in my head.
Somebody needs to make some phonics.
You know what? I couldn't say Indomica for the longest time. I just said Sue. Like when he first came out. I used to just say Sue, and they were like, I said, I'm not even going to attempt his first name. So finally, once I got the enunciation, I was able to say it and say it with confidence. But I couldn't tell you what the name of that kid is. I'm not even going to try to butcher his name.
Somebody needs to make a book about football phonics.
I'm sure he's going to be a good football. If he can return back to form, he's going to be a good football player for us.
Oh, I don't doubt that. Ron, you had something.
Yeah, just to follow up on Byron Maxwell, you mentioned that you felt he was really a system guy. Do you think that Vance Joseph's system is more the system he played in Seattle or closer to it? And number two, do we think maybe how bad he was last year was overblown, just the way he was destroyed by Julio Jones in that first game of the season, I believe it was. But after that, I mean, he kind of seemed to settle down a little bit, although we'll admit he wasn't as good as he was in Seattle.
He just wasn't the same player that they paid. And when you get paid that kind of money, people want you to come in and be that shutdown corner. And it just seemed like more passes were completed on his side than what you wanted to be. And I'm sure the same thing happened with Brent Grimes this year. There were more passes completed. Like Brandon Marshall had a day against Brent Grimes. And, it was unusual to see Brent Grimes get beat that way. But I think it's kind of Byron Maxwell kind of is the same way. Again, when you get paid that kind of money, you expect the guy to come in and, just shut down and do the same thing he was paid to do while he was in Seattle. But the defense was totally different. So I think Coach Joseph's defense may suit his talent, and if it's anything close to what he did in Seattle, he's going to be on one side of the field, and he's going to man that side. And now you're going to look for another corner to do the same on the other side. So with the type of offense or with the type of defense that Coach Joseph plans to run, you got to look at the Bengals. I mean, it was really pressured. They pressured a lot of offenses with their 4-man front, and they needed corners that could cover. And if Byron Maxwell could get back to form and cover the way he did while he was in Seattle, then I think we're going to be okay. But I'm looking to see the Seattle Byron Maxwell and not the Philadelphia equal Byron Maxwell.
Okay, so since we're talking about cornerbacks, and I'm gonna let you balk at this one if you don't want to go too deep into it. But the whole Brent Grimes situation obviously was not just about Brent Grimes being bad. Do you have any thoughts about the whole situation, or do you kind of shrug it off?
I mean, I kind of shrug it off. I mean, I think I think we knew what we were getting ourselves into when we got Brent Grimes. And, honestly, you got to judge the player and what that player means to you on the football team. And the fact that, this was a guy who obviously he didn't have as great a year as he had the year before, but he was our best corner and our best option to do certain things. And, when Byron Maxwell absorbed his contract, and then you look at, you asking Grimes to take a pay cut. I don't know what the whole situation was about. You're saying, which corner would you rather have on your football team? Would you rather have a guy like Brent Grimes, or would you have a guy who's making, probably $3 or $4 million more and productive? I think they both had similar years. I think Brent Grimes was primed to bounce back, but he was one of my favorite players on the football team. I'm a hometown guy. He's from Philly. I'm from Harrisburg. He went to Shippensburg, and I was pulling for the underdog ultimately. But I think when you look at the player, you got to look at the player, and I understand that there were other things that were involved. But at the end of the day, Brent Grimes is a good football player. And, if Brent Grimes goes up to Tampa and he plays lights out, Byron to Byron Maxwell, then you're going to be asking yourself, why did the Miami Dolphins get rid of another great player? And he's going to make an impact somewhere else. And, it kind of seems like anytime you have great players leave the Miami Dolphins, they go other places and they play well and they do special things. And you just hope and pray that doesn't happen in this situation, because now you're going to have fans asking that question again. Why do we get rid of all of our great players and they go to other places and play well. So, I don't really look at any other situation. And with Brent Grimes, I don't look at it as an issue. I look at what Brent Grimes brings to your football team, what he brings to practice every day, and I judge Brent Grimes based off of Brent Grimes' talent and not anything else.
Just a question on Brent Grimes. One time, or I should say last year, it seemed that he started to struggle against some of the bigger, more athletic wide receivers. And it seems like he's really going to face that even worse in the division he went to. If I'm not mistaken, he's going to face Julio Jones twice. He's going to face not face Mike Evans twice, but I'm sorry, the player from Carolina Panthers. I don't remember the one
Kelvin Benjamin.
Kelvin Benjamin twice.
Benjamin.
Yeah, it just seems like he is going to kind of be in the same spot he was with Sammy Watkins and Brandon Marshall, but now he's even a year older. So I kind of wonder if maybe we're just going to see the same thing again in Tampa that we saw in Miami. I really don't know, but I guess time will tell.
Well, the way that I look at it is this. You have two of the biggest wide receivers in the National Football League in Tampa. You get to see those guys every single day. So you're going to play against Vincent Jackson. You're going to play against Mike Evans. You're going to play against those guys every day. So to me, when it comes to that size, he's going to learn to overcome that working against those guys every day in practice. I think the problem that he may have is Julio, because Julio not only size, but he has more athletic ability, more speed than those other guys. So Kelvin Benjamin is coming off of a knee injury. So, you're talking about a guy who has extraordinary size, but he's got to have that confidence going in and out of breaks. So, yeah, I think Julio may pose a problem, but, you kind of got to take your chances against that. But, Brent Grimes is a hell of a cover corner. And, sometimes, it's just not your day. And, last year, I don't know what was going on with Brent Grimes, but he did have a tough day against Brandon Marshall. And so I don't look at it as, Brandon Marshall being, 6'5", 225 pounds, and Brent Grimes being, 5'9", 5'10", 185 pounds. I still think he's one of the most. I think he's probably the best athlete on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers football team at his age. And I don't think people understand how great of an athlete he is. And one thing about it is, I think Brent Grimes, I don't look at his size. I mean, he covered, Calvin Johnson pretty well. And guys are paid to make plays in the National Football League. So that's the only way I think. I think that, Brent Grimes is still probably, if Brent Grimes is on this football team, he's still our best cover corner, regardless of if you get Byron Maxwell or not. He's still our best cover corner. So I think despite the fact that you go to another division, you're going to face you're going to be going against two of the biggest receivers in the National Football League in Tampa every day. So you just have to see how those guys match up and see how Brent Grimes takes it from there.
I honestly hadn't thought of that whole idea about how Mike Evans and Vincent Jackson. It's like he's gonna get worked up there in Tampa. It's like, okay, you couldn't handle big boys. We're gonna give you two of them. Let's see how you do every day. So
absolutely. So that's the way that I see it. So I don't look at it so much as Brent Grimes going. He's facing these guys. I'm saying, have you seen Vincent Jackson? I was in Hawaii for the NFLPA retired players convention. And he was up there, and I was like, damn, this guy, he looks like a tight end. I mean, he is a big, big receiver, and you got that guy to work with. And then you have a young Mike Evans to work against every single day. They may have their hands full with Brent Grimes.
Of course, they always could play some monkey in the middle if they really had to,
Absolutely. So, it's just one of those things. I mean, again, I have a lot of respect for Brent Grimes, and I've always pulled for the underdog. I mean, from the times I figured out that, he was from Philly and then he played for Shippensburg, I followed him while he was in Atlanta, and I was hoping that we were going to get him. And just to go back to the Achilles thing, he came from a torn Achilles. They didn't sign him back in Atlanta. He comes to the Miami Dolphins. He works his butt off, and he's a Pro Bowl corner. So, when it comes to the Achilles are tough injuries, but he's proven that you can come back off of an Achilles injury and get back to top form. So I totally forgot that he was a guy who had an Achilles injury, and he did. That's why Atlanta didn't re-sign him. So he came down here. He bet on himself for a year. He went to the Pro Bowl and went to another Pro Bowl a year after that. A year after that, he's playing for another football team. So, if these guys if Cameron Wake comes back off of his Achilles, if we can sign a guy like Arian Foster, he can get back to top form. Then this Miami Dolphins football team might straighten up and be something. Especially if he can get a guy like Arian Foster signed, because Arian Foster is a dual threat when it comes to running the ball between the tackles, and he's also a guy that can catch the ball in the backfield.
And he's got I think he's still got a lot of gas in the tank too. Okay, I really didn't want to keep dwelling on this for too long, but I really feel like, Troy, I think we both know that it wasn't necessarily Brent that people were mad at. And I mean, I understand that you don't want to judge a player based on other off the field stuff, but I mean, it got to the point, I think, where it was just so vocal. Like you've seen the things that she would say about the team's quarterback, and she had no remorse for it at all. It's not even talking about him as it didn't, sometimes it seemed like she wasn't even talking about him as a player. It seemed more like she was attacking his character in a way. The absolute volume, the vulgarity. I don't know if you have an opinion on that stuff, but I think that I don't even think if Brent plays well in Tampa that people are going to care, because it really felt like they really wanted to get rid of her more than they wanted to get rid of Brent.
I look at her, and this is kind of how I look at the situation. When you look at a lot of the things what she's saying, you got to figure out where she's getting all this stuff from. You know what I mean? First and foremost, you got to figure where is she getting this from. She's not in the locker room every day, so she obviously doesn't have an opinion on how, what is being said or whatever the case may be, because she's not there. So I think sometimes she's just regurgitating what may be a conversation, but more importantly, she's adding her spin on it. No, she doesn't. She's not ever going to go quietly, because that's not her personality. And I can understand how the Miami Dolphins would look at her as somebody that you don't want around. I can definitely see that. But at the end of the day, it's not like she didn't do the same thing in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
So what you were getting yourself into when you signed Brent Grimes. Yeah. She hasn't changed at all. So at the end of the day, you knew what you were getting yourself into. And, you have to take the good with the bad. And if one of the reasons why they got rid of Brent Grimes is because then she was just a part of that process of them saying, okay, we're either going to pay him, we're either going to keep him and deal with her, or we are going to, just cut him all together and let it go. And the Miami Dolphins decided to cut Brent Grimes and then in reality kind of get rid of her as well. But, it's not like history's repeating itself, because she hasn't changed. She's going to say what she wants to say. She's going to take up for her husband. And, that's just the kind of person she is. Not to say that she's a bad person. It's just to say that that's exactly how she is. And, but it's not like it just all of a sudden happened. if you go back and look at her history, she's been vocal. She did the same thing in Atlanta. So all I can say is we knew what we were getting ourselves into when we signed Brent Grimes, because not only were we signing Brent Grimes, we were signing Miko Grimes as well.
Yeah, that's that, and I understand it. It's not like we were supposed to expect anything less. It is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, at the end of the day, Brent Grimes has another job somewhere else.
Well, I wish him luck.
Yeah, I mean, I love him as a football player. I mean, I got a chance to get to know his mother pretty well. And I thought he was a phenomenal football player. I mean, I still think he's a phenomenal football player.
I agree with Troy 100% that I don't think Maxwell is just a replacement for Grimes. Grimes is one of the better cover corners we've had in many years. But
ever since his teammates were in the game, Sam and Pat.
Sam. Patrick Surtain and Madison were phenomenal, of course. But I mean, we went through a stretch where we just didn't have that guy. So I'm hoping they're able to get that guy. But further to what you guys are saying, it's going to be an interesting year, away from the Dolphins for Brent Grimes, because Troy's right. Miko had a lot of interaction and that kind of stuff, or drama, if you will, with Atlanta, with the fans of Atlanta, and with the organization of Atlanta. And he's going to be having to go to Atlanta, now and play them twice a year. And
I didn't even think about that.
It's going to be Julio Jones in Atlanta, and so it's going to be a double-edged sword. Where if Brent Grimes struggles in those Atlanta games, they are going to really be hammering the Grimes, because there's some bad blood there. So
yeah,
I wish him the best. I think Brent Grimes is just a quiet, hardworking player, and I think Miko is vocal. Whether you agree or don't agree with what she said, she's going to be vocal. You do know that. And so that's going to make for some, I guess, for people covering the game, it's going to make for some good entertainment when the Buccaneers play the Falcons.
Oh, for God's sakes. Come on, Chad.
Absolutely. I mean, again, she hasn't changed. And I think what has happened is that she has a platform. She has followers. And when you give a person who is a vocal person, an opinionated person, a platform, they're going to utilize that platform. Listen, Miko Grimes is not a dumb woman. She's a very smart woman. And she knows that people are out there, that people are watching everything that she does. They're looking at every tweet. They're looking at every post. They're looking at everything, and she's using it to her advantage. Again, some people, it's like, some people who are smart, they use their smarts for good, and they use it for bad. And, she's just one of those people who is using a platform that has been given, and she's using it to voice her opinion, and because people are paying attention. And, the minute that people stop paying attention, then you'll see that thing kind of quiet down. But the more attention you give it, the worse it's going to be, because, people are paying attention. But she is not a dumb woman by any stretch of the imagination. She's just using the platforms that she has to bring attention, to voice her opinion, and to bring attention to things that she feels is being done a disservice. And she didn't go quietly in Atlanta, and she didn't go quietly with the Miami Dolphins. So the best thing you have to do is just say, I wish Brent Grimes the best up in Tampa. I hope he plays well. He's not in our division anymore, so he's not. It's not like we have to face him now. He's Julio's problem, and he's he's Cam Newton's problem, Kelvin Benjamin's problem, and that's kind of how you kind of have to view it.
Yeah. Hey, Troy, do you have a few more minutes?
Yeah.
All right. So we have Keith Beebe, our other regular panelist, joining us now. Keith, how are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you doing?
We're doing good. We got Troy Drayton on with us, good friend of ours. So I don't know if you have any questions. I know we have been leaving you hanging for a few minutes now. So anything you have to ask?
Just put on the spot? Not really. I didn't prepare anything. I feel terribly unprepared right now.
You know, it doesn't have to be tight ends. Just ask him anything. Like, you curious, go. Something.
Oh, jeez. That's tough, man.
You don't know.
That's tough.
You know what his favorite food
is. Ask him if you like Superman versus Batman.
Oh, no. Oh, come on.
Nice.
Okay, go ahead, Troy. What, did you see it yet?
I didn't see the movie yet, no, but it looks interesting. It made a lot of money. I know it made. Last time I looked at it, I think it made like over $52 million.
Actually, I think it's almost to the point where it's almost at a billion or something like that?
Really?
I think it had some sort of
worldwide?
effect. Yeah, but like it had like a quick slide off, so it made like a ton of money its opening weekend, and then it like pretty much
that
just,
might have
fell
been
off
the
a cliff.
opening weekend money, but I know that was the last time I've seen it, and I had some interest in watching it. So maybe this weekend I'll go to the movies and maybe check it out.
Well, I've been getting a lot of requests to talk about Batman versus Superman on the show, and I haven't actually seen the movie yet myself. All I know is that people are pretty upset because it's not Marvel, and Superman's not allowed to be edgy, so.
Well, let me say this. You know, they had to get Marvel's approval to use it, so I'm sure it doesn't have to be a Marvel for everybody to know that it's Marvel. So, you know, somebody had to sign off for him to use Batman and Superman in that type of way. So it's, you know, either way, Marvel's gonna make out because I'm sure they got something in the contract where these guys are making a ton of money.
I'm sure somewhere Oob is asking this question. What do you think about the fact that Spider-Man is going to be in Civil War?
Man, that's interesting. I think it's actually going to be. That might be something I'll go over the first weekend to see. To be honest.
You know, they used to at the Dolphins games. This might have been 2 years ago. They'd ask the players that question: if you were going to pick who was the better superhero, would you pick the Hulk or would you pick Spider-Man? So I was always curious.
Who?
They'd ask if you were going to pick the best superhero, they'd ask the Hulk or Spider-Man, and then they'd have the players up on the big screen to say Spider-Man.
I did see that. I would have definitely chose the Hulk.
Oh, come on. You don't like underoos?
I'm sure, man. The Hulk, the madder he gets, the stronger he gets.
We want to
the
see
funny thing is, though?
Go ahead.
With, like, the Hulk and Spider-Man are both, like, franchises that have just, I mean, Spider-Man's going to be on his third franchise. The Hulk's already in his third one. I think those are the two, like, superheroes that have been, outside of Superman, that have just been done repeatedly the past decade or so. And I don't know, like, I hated the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. I liked the first of the second franchise. I didn't like the second movie. So, I mean, I love those characters. It would just be nice if they could stop rebooting them all the time and just find a formula that works.
I don't know. I mean, they did a sequel again in Miami, and we've got the Hulk. He wears number 93.
Oh, yeah. No, Brandon Albert was the Hulk.
Oh, for the superhero Marvel they did in the Flyer, yeah, that's saying that. If Sue gets a hold of Buffalo quarterback again this year, and he doesn't go down easy, you're going to see the Hulk.
Oh, Tyrod. I remember. Yeah, I remember that.
Listen, let me tell you something. Sue needs to get back to playing on an edge. He's playing with an edge, and that's the type of football player that we need. You know, he was better when he played with an edge. And, you know, I know a lot of people held their breaths when he sacked the quarterback, but, you know, down in those trenches, man, it's nothing nice down in those trenches. And I think for him to be the best football player that he can be, he has to play with that edge. And you know, sometimes that means getting a 15-yard penalty every game or every couple of games or whatever the case may be. You live with it. But he was unstoppable when he played with that edge, and it just seemed like you know I'm not going to say he lost that edge, but he didn't use that edge to his advantage the way that we've seen him use that edge in Detroit. So we can get that player back. we can get that guy back to having the same edge that he had when he was in Detroit. And now he'll have his pass rush specialist coach back here. I think he'll get back to being the old dominant in Ndamukong Suh. So
I feel bad for the guy because it just feels like between the media and the league, anything he does is highlighted. And so I know it comes with having the reputation of being, that dangerous player that will slam somebody down. But I just like this year, I just was watching him, and like you guys have seen that, like in the games and stuff. He gets up and his knee hits somebody's head, and they're crying foul that he needs to be suspended a game because he kneed the guy in the head. And so
I think you just have to go play the game. I think you can't worry about what people say. You have to play your game, and I think with the way that the game is being played now, with you being fined for everything, I think you are more conscious. But I just think that takes away. I think you just have to go out and be who you are. If you're a nasty guy that's going to go out and do things, then that's what you're going to have to do. Because, at the end of the day, you're going to be defined by not how many Pro Bowls you make it to or all pros you make. You're going to be defined by how many Super Bowl rings you bring. And, in Ndamukong Suh, that's how people are going to judge him. He's already looked at as a bad guy already. So, I kind of always go to the Scarface days and say, welcome to the bad guy. You got to, he's the bad guy. So play the bad guy role. Just go out and dominate people. People know the type of person you are off the field. You're a very giving and individual. But when you're on the field, we need that old nasty Ndamukong Suh that God is going to go out and just plow through double teams and do what he needs to do for his football team to help him win. So that's
I got a question.
Oh, Keith. Okay, go ahead, Keith.
It's not Dolphins related though, but because Troy also played in St. Louis. Was the Edward Jones Dome really that bad?
The what?
Because you played in the Edward Jones Dome. I think it was called the Trans World Dome at the time.
Yes.
Was it? They brought up that place as a big reason why they moved to LA and whatnot. Was it really that bad when you were there?
I think it was lively. I think we had a lively atmosphere. When I first moved from LA to St. Louis, of course, people are going to come out and support your football team. Through the heyday when the St. Louis Rams were winning Super Bowls and going to the Super Bowl with Marshall Faulk and Isaac Bruce and Kurt Warner and Torrey Holt, I'm sure it wasn't a bad place to play. I think as your team gets worse, I think people are now going to find they're going to spend their money somewhere else, and it's just really that simple. I don't think it was a bad place to play. I just think that the LA market is too enticing to not go back, to not at least explore the opportunity and see what's there. And they're crying. They're starving for a franchise. I mean, you're talking about the second largest media market in the National Football League that doesn't have a football team. And, you're talking about a place where, you're talking about leveraging your power to either stay, to get them to pay for a brand new stadium, or to go somewhere else and go back to where you originated. And I think it was just overwhelmingly great to go back to that market and to build whatever you want and to be able to have those fans back in the stadium. The question is once that all wears off, are they going to go back to being the fans going to go back to being the same old fans that when I was there? ultimately, when you have a home game, you know, when you have a home game, it's really a home game for the other opponent as well, because there were more people in the stadium for the opponent than it was our own fans. So,
and when you were in LA,
see once everything wears off, once all of that wears off, all the newness of the franchise wears off, you'll definitely see the type of people or the type of fan that you really have. Are they going to go back to being the same old fans that they were when we left? Or are they going to continue to support them because they're going to be able to sustain, or they're going to be able to have people fill that stadium? So I think it's a wait and type of see type of thing. But I think when you look at the Los Angeles market, you know, they were crying for a team. And, you know, the Los Angeles Rams and Stan Kroenke, he uses leverage to be able to move his football team back to the Los Angeles. I mean, that's big business at his best. So,
is there a
that's
jar?
Kind of how I view it.
Is there a jar going around the facility yet? Oh, you called him St. Louis.
Well,
I think
that's very true. Well, they're LA right now. I mean, I'm used to calling them St. Louis because you know, that's where I play. But you know, just the newness of it's going to take me a while. I was actually, when I was in Hawaii I had a chance to meet Eric Dickerson and a couple of my old teammates that I played with in LA, and I actually had a chance to talk to Isaiah Robinson. And, you know, he is so excited that the franchise is moving back to LA. And I think Eric Dickerson reiterated that as well. They're just very happy that the Rams are moving. And, you know, they couldn't be happier that the franchise is going back. So there are some people who want to see the team go back to LA, and you know, now they'll be the only team in LA. They'll get the focal point of they'll be the only football franchise in LA. But they'll be the focal point of everybody's attention once the stadium is built. I'm sure they'll fill up the stadium, but again, you know, if they go back to their old ways, we'll see how the LA fan base responds to that.
So we've had you on for a long time, Troy. I'm sorry that we kept you on for this long, but it's like when we start talking, it's kind of hard to stop.
No, it's all good, man.
Hey, before you go, you recently took place in the inaugural Dolphins Cancer Challenge golf tournament. How did that go, man? How did the golf go? Any laugh-worthy stories, like slices into the water, stuff like that?
Oh, I sliced a lot of them. I didn't find the water as much as I did a couple of weeks prior. I played in the Reed and Florentino golf tournament, and that was my first time swinging my clubs in like 6 months. So I didn't lose as many balls yesterday as I lost in previous years. So I'm just happy that I had two girls who were first-time golfers. One girl had gotten golf clubs, and she was taking golf off her golf clubs while she was pulling them out of her bag. I was like, this is going to be a long day.
You're gonna have to teach them how to play. It's like here's.
No, actually, there was a doctor who was supposed to be with us. I think there were two nurses. They worked for the cancer center. In I don't know 2 or 3 years. The other girl, like I said, she was pulling the plastic off of her clubs. So we just asked our caddy to play. So he was more or less teaching them how to swing the club, and you know all that. You know, I was trying to fix some of my issues myself. So all in all, it was a great time. I mean, you know, you gotta Turnberry for hosting us, and all the sponsors who came out to support us. And I think everybody knows somebody who has cancer or who has been fighting that battle. And I think when you look at our CEO, Tom Garfinkel, and what he's been able to do with the Dolphins Cancer Challenge, it went from just cycling to, and now you're adding a golf tournament in it. It's now becoming a year, and I think people are definitely getting behind it, and we're going to raise more and more money to fight cancer, and I'm just glad to be a part of it, and just with an organization that cares so much about this fight. So, yeah.
I hope that Dan didn't throw any. Dan didn't get mad at any balls he hit, did he?
Man, look, Dan. I'm sure there's a lot of balls that Dan hit that he probably hit 95% of his balls probably went straight down the pipe. So if he hits a bad shot, oh well. Like, that's one bad shot out of how many? Like, who cares?
I'm sure he cares.
Yeah, he does, because he wants to hit them all straight down the pipe. That's just the competitor he is. But me, I'm like, if I can hit half of mine down the pike, I'm happy.
You got a good day. All right, Troy. Thanks, man, for sticking with us for so long. Like, we really enjoyed having you on to talk some football. It's always fun to have you on.
Okay, man. You guys take care.
All right, Troy. Thanks, man.
All right, man. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, so I think you had him on for an hour. That was Troy Drayton, former Miami Dolphins tight end, and a lot of stuff we talked about, a lot of fun we had, and I'm glad we could finally take care of the Batman Superman topic for Oob. I'm sure if he's listening, he's probably like, you didn't talk about it. It's like, I didn't see it yet, Oob. I'll get there. Chill. So, anyway, Keith, you came in a little late. I don't know if you managed to catch any of what Troy had said previously, but talked about Jordan Cameron. We found out that Troy cannot say, or rather he wasn't willing to try to say Ifo Ekpre-Olomu, or I think that's how it says, but I even offered to help buy him lunch if he could say it. He didn't even try, so... So since you're here and you're the one who pretty much does most of the draft stuff for when you come on the show, what were your thoughts on Ifo Ekpre-Olomu before he got drafted by Cleveland? Like, what is Miami getting, assuming he can actually come back?
Well, if he can get that knee healthy, then I mean, you're talking about a guy who at Oregon was outstanding. No lower than I considered like a day 2 prospect for that guy, and then he gets hurt, and I mean everything changed. So if he is healthy, you're getting a guy who could play flat corner at a very high level. So I think that could be really important, especially for a Dolphins secondary. That I mean, outside of Byron Maxwell, and I mean I suppose with Byron Maxwell too, you just have a ton of question marks all over the place.
The thing I find interesting about that guy is the guy's cheap. I mean, the Browns had him on a cheap contract, so maybe it's just the Browns being the Browns, but I didn't understand why they cut him now. I mean, I can understand a guy like that getting cut in training camp because he just isn't quite back yet, and so they don't want to wait any longer for him to try to get healthy, but why cut a guy in April? I don't understand the move the Browns made.
I never understand the move the Browns make, so... I don't know. You saw a bunch of people online making the analytics jokes that Ifo Ekpre-Olomu didn't satisfy their Moneyball requirements, so they decided to jettison him. I don't really know, but I think that if the Dolphins are fortunate enough to get that guy healthy, then I mean, as Chad mentioned, he's insanely cheap. I mean, there are signing bonuses that cost far more than what that guy. It gets paid. So if it's good, it's real good. So we'll see.
I've heard people call him a slot corner. Is that what he is?
Ideally, I think that I thought at Oregon he showed off a pretty impressive skill set. But if he's playing at a high level in the NFL, I figure that's probably going to be in the slot. I wouldn't say no to anything, but I think that ideally, if I was a defensive coordinator, I'd probably have that guy playing the slot.
So that means he's going to be going up against Bobby McCain for that spot, which I guess, if push comes to shove, is not a terrible thing. Could he play the boundary if he had to?
Well, that's up to Vance Joseph, and it also depends how that knee's doing too. I think that the skill set he showed at Oregon suggested that, given the right coaching, he could have done a considerable amount as an NFL corner. I don't think he would have been relegated to like a nickel or that slot type role. So I don't know. But, I mean, really, this is all predicated on him coming back. And they claim his knee is healthy. He's 5'9". He can dunk a basketball. I saw all that out there today. So, I mean, if he's healthy, then, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what Vance Joseph tries to do with him.
Yeah, well, that's for the whole dunking a basketball thing. I mean, and Mike Pouncey was able to play golf yesterday. So it's not like that has anything to do with him playing football. So the whole dunking a basketball thing is moot to me.
Well, I don't know. If you're 5'9" and you need that explosion, especially if you're getting all of that lift out of your knees, I mean, it's not like you hear that and you're like, oh, well, he's completely healthy now. But it's nice to know that he's got that lift in his legs because given that knee injury, I mean, you consider it a good sign. It's not like you sign off on it because the guy can have jam session. But
which again, Keith, raises the question. If he can dunk a basketball right now and they've got a few months before he even has to be on the field, why would they cut him? So
because it's Cleveland, Chad.
Oh, yeah, I have no explanation. I have no explanation for why Cleveland did that. I have no explanation for a lot of what Cleveland does. It might have sounded like I was making a joke there, but I'm not. A lot of what they do is inexplicable. So I have no idea why you cut him, pretty much 3 weeks before the draft. I have no answer to that.
It's just Cleveland being Cleveland. Hey, Ron, you still here, man?
I'm here, man.
You're way too quiet. It's like, I'm like, did Ron hang up? And
No, I didn't hang up. What I was thinking on that, though, is the last thing we need to see is another guy who's obviously more of a slot corner being forced out to the boundary because we don't have anyone else. So it makes me a little nervous on that end because we saw that happen last year with Bryce McCain.
I really think the next boundary corner they're going to draft. I think that's whether it's the first or second round, we're going to draft a corner that's probably going to play this year. And I'm not giving up by any stretch on Tony Lippett either. He's shown some pretty impressive athletic ability. I just don't know how quickly they can get him, ready to play out on the boundary on corner. But to me, this signing is one of the guys that are going to be competing on the bubble with Jamar Taylor. I mean, that's who he'll be looking at. I don't really foresee him coming in to be one of the three guys on the field on a routine basis. He'll probably be a depth guy that can play special teams, and they're just going to see how he looks in camp and see if he can outplay Jamar Taylor. That's probably what role he'll be in coming in.
Yeah, I like the signing because there's nothing to lose, so I like the signing. I just don't want to see us force somebody out of position again. Is all.
Yeah, I agree with Chad though. I think the next the big time corner that Miami adds will be acquired via draft pick.
Well, presumably Vance Joseph and Adam Gase know how to use players to the best of their ability. So if they really are that smart, then Ifo Ekpre-Olomu should not be shoved out to where he's uncomfortable. I swear I'm going to say his name wrong every time. I need somebody to tell me how to say it for real. And I understand why Troy didn't want to say it because I'm probably butchering the man's name so badly. So when
No, you got it.
I did say it right?
Ifo Ekpre-Olomu. It's Ifo Ekpre-Olomu.
Why do we have all these? Why do we have all these complicated names in our backfield now? This is going to be a really hard year to talk about the Dolphins.
Yeah, Abdul Caduce.
And this guy.
This is a behind-the-scenes thing from the organization. Last year, they want to confuse the media, and last year their plan was to just sign everybody with the last name McCain. And all right, let's see them call this game when we have all this last name. So this year they're like, well, that didn't work. Let's just get these guys that have the hardest possible
I'm sure
names.
It worked.
Well, they didn't get them on the field. I wanted to see all three of them on the field and see, McCain on the tackle.
Which one?
I don't ever want to see Chris McCain on the field, but that's just me.
Well, at this point, it doesn't look like we're going to see a lot more, other than Bobby, a lot of McCain on the field. But so I think this year their goal is to just sign guys that have incredibly hard
all
names,
the complicated names. Yeah, it's like there's a tongue twister for you. Let's see: Ifo Ekpre-Olomu, Misa Abdul Kudus, and Dama Kangsu. Oh, I did it. Okay, it's not that hard after all. Chad, you try.
No, you don't even want me to try.
Come on,
so,
come on.
I failed ever since they had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Nice.
Oh, can we bring him back? Like, that would be awesome. Like, can we just bring him in so we can add to the...
He's probably next on the list after Daniel Thomas right now.
If we give him the ball 1,100 times, he'll get 1,000 yards.
I just preferred to call him by his real name, like when he was at UCLA. I never, like when he changed his name to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, I never
that
even
wasn't
bothered
his
to
name.
call him.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It was, yeah, Sharman Shah. That was his real name.
Wait, what was it?
Sharman Shah.
Well, no wonder he changed his name. Why would you want to be named after toilet paper?
He was for religious reasons or something. I can't remember why he changed his name. But
Yeah. He didn't do it. I mean, it wasn't because he just thought it was cool to change his name to it. I mean, like when you take on that name, it's absolutely through that strict faith. So
I didn't know that was what was going on. I didn't even know that was. I didn't even know he had changed his name. That's what happened.
Yeah,
you're a young. I'm a youngin. I'm a youngin. Forgive me. Although, if that was his name before, I mean, if his name was Charmin, I mean, I don't blame him for wanting to change it anyway. So.
Well, it wasn't spelled like Charmin. It was like SHAR, like MAN.
Okay, but since when does spelling matter? Like, they're gonna hear it. Charmin.
This sounds like a scene from Robin Hood Men in Tights, but I can't repeat. I can't repeat the language. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and watch the movie. You have to watch the DVD. You can't see the TV edit, or it cuts it out.
This is the kind of commentary you hear when it's 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter and the team's losing 49-3.
Hey, we need to have some fun every once in a while. Come on.
Did you guys enjoy? I was out last night with my friend who's like Mr. North Carolina Tar Heels basketball, and after that game, I thought he was going to kill himself. So we were in this bar, and for some reason, like the people who were running the bar couldn't figure out that I didn't know that they do like team streams now on television, so you can get like your own commentating, like you can get your own bias going on. I had no idea that they did that for Final Four games, so I learned something last night.
I had no idea that this was all such a big a deal. Like, I've seen people go nuts over this stuff, but I didn't realize that college basketball was so big. It's like, it makes...
in North Carolina, it's big. They're pretty rabid.
I didn't even know the championship had happened until somebody told me this morning. That's how much I paid attention.
Wow. I forgot I brought it up then.
Okay, we've just been outed by the sports community, Ron. I want you to know that.
I'm on a football podcast. Out me all you like. Did not know baseball had even started.
Oh yeah, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
The Cubs won the season opener.
Somebody just said
good for the Cubs. We're not in Chicago. Keith is in Chicago. Keith, do you care about the Cubs?
Yeah, I love baseball.
Oh, okay. There you go. So there you go, Chad.
I'll bet you Keith knew the Cubs won.
That was what I was watching last night in addition to the National Day. I love all four sports, and this actually surprised a lot of people, but football is not my favorite sport. So
it's baseball?
No, it's hockey. I grew up playing hockey and baseball.
Okay, so
I know nothing about hockey.
I don't know anything about hockey. I went to my first hocky game maybe 2 months ago, and I was completely lost more than half the time. It's like, why did that guy get a penalty? I don't understand what's going on here.
That's amazing to me because football is such an incredibly complex game with so many subgroups, and hockey is so basic. So I always laugh when like football fans are like, I just don't understand what's going on. I was like, honestly, it is a fraction of the complex, the verbiage, the concepts, everything. Like hockey's a basic sport with the lines on ice with boards.
Wouldn't it be fun to incorporate some of those rules into football, where you had a penalty box for football and then guys can take their helmets off and fight? Man, the ratings.
I'm not gonna lie. there have been plenty of times, and it's usually against the Patriots, where I was like, oh, I swear, if we could just get an enforcer, go over there and just like beat on Tom Brady. And I'm like, oh, right, what am I thinking? I'm watching football.
Well, that's
So
what Chris McCain's job was. Do you still not want him on the field?
No, I'd rather have John McCain on the field than Chris McCain. No, thank you.
Like the politician? Like, please tell me that's not who you mean.
Yeah, that is exactly what I mean.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
the
No.
senator
If you need an
of
enforcer, you
Arizona.
go in and get Donald Trump.
What? No, I'm not. How did this take a turn? I'm just bringing up the man. I'm not bringing up what he does.
Like that, you just go and get the guy to like. That's what they do, right? They just fight a bunch of I'll fight a lot. There's
in hockey.
No, anywhere.
They allow it. I don't know. I don't know the rules that well for hockey.
Yeah, hockey confuses me.
Yeah, I know there's some fighting, and there's something called icing, and you're trying to block the puck, and that's all. And there's like a penalty box, and sometimes they make it where more people are playing against more people, but somehow they don't score, and then sometimes they just don't have a goalie at all because they're trying to score, and then I don't know. That's it. That's
See,
all.
this is okay because you guys are from Florida, so this doesn't offend me at all.
Hey, but the Panthers are in the playoffs. We should know this stuff.
Well, it's not. You could pick up the entire game in 5 minutes. It's not complex.
Okay, we need to get together and have like this tutoring session.
Oh my, yeah. Just go on Wikipedia. Hey, honestly, like I wouldn't refer people to Wikipedia to learn many things. But how you want to go? Just honestly spend 5 minutes. You'll be fine.
Wikipedia is a liar. Wikipedia is always wrong. Never use Wikipedia. Never use Wikipedia for a paper.
Well, just make sure the information's sourced. That's like rule number one when you use Wikipedia. If there's a bibliography at the bottom, then just see where it's going to. Like if it's all sourced and it's cited throughout the paragraph, chances are you're reading something that's at least decent. And if it comes out and it's a paragraph that's written like if he seemed like he was doing this, then you can probably bet that it was written by like some like little Justin Bieber fan or something.
We've kind of gone off the rails here.
Kinda,
yeah, a little bit. Just a little bit.
Yeah,
that's okay. We need to have some fun. Well, any last thoughts, guys? I mean, we've already talked. We talked a lot with Troy, and we talked a lot about play. Well, Keith, do you have any players that you think could make a comeback with Adam Gase as the coach now that the coaching changes here?
Dallas Thomas. I'm kidding.
Oh,
okay, I was about to say.
I just wanted to say that. I just wanted to say that just to upset
just so we can
Ron.
get his name in there.
And the last minority of listeners just signed off.
Yeah, they're gone. Which is too bad because they think I'm serious when I say that. No, I mean, I think that Billy Turner probably rounds into the form we expected him to when he came out of North Dakota State. I think he's one. It's kind of funny now that because you saw the chatter about on the offense about how Philbin and company completely misused everyone, and now you're starting to see it on the defensive side of the ball, like we already didn't know it. So I think that there's plenty of players where if you just put them in a competent, functional system, and they trust their coach, they buy in. Because I have a hard time believing that anyone was able to buy in. Even short term with Joe Philbin. I just struggle to believe that. So I think that if you get Adam Gase in there, you got Vance Joseph, and you got these players who are going to buy into what this guy has to say, then yeah, I mean, you could bring up any number of players on this team. I think that you'll see an increased production, increased enthusiasm, attitude. I mean, I think you'll see the whole lot. So the other question I had is, are you going to do like a draft, a special draft week edition of the show where we can all sit there and pretend like we know what we're talking about in terms of draft picks?
Well, you're the one who does the draft stuff. Maybe I can get Duke and Ian to come on and talk draft with us while we just kind of sit there and pretend like I don't watch film. I know I need to get Matthew Knowles up in here. He's the one who's doing all the film reviews for us. He's looking into the draft prospects. But we'll probably do some special draft coverage. I mean, I'm probably going to go, and if I get the invitation, I'll probably go and cover the draft party at the stadium again. And I'll have Chad, and maybe if you'd be willing to be his other guy there, maybe we could. I'll cover the draft party live, and then we can discuss the draft as it goes.
Well, that'd be fun.
And then Keith can call in too, because we need like 3 guys in here while I'm getting smoshed by a bunch of people at the stadium because there's no room to stand.
I don't know what's going to happen. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you do the draft show with me, you got to have really slick back hair, kind of like Eddie Munster.
Yeah, with the widow's peak. I don't have a widow's peak, so Ron and I were talking about this the other day, but I'm not nearly the draft guy. It's such an oversaturated group on Twitter now, where everyone's an expert. Like, you get these guys who have these avatars done up where they're wearing suits and they work for some like scouting analysis, and it's just, I don't know. It's almost like starting up your own record label. I don't know that it holds much weight anymore.
I love the draft, but like guys like Mel Kiper, the professionals, they do that year round. I mean, they spend so much time knowing those college drafts.
They get it wrong, too.
And so they still get it wrong. I was going to say, it's like Mel Kiper does it all year long just to get it wrong.
This is the one,
just to irritate people.
This is the one thing that always annoyed me about the draft, and when I started getting more and more annoyed with Omar Kelly, because I used to be a big fan and really a big follower of his, was the fact that he would obsess so much over and sit there and watch, apparently or supposedly watch all this film and stay up late nights watching all these guys, 300-400 guys. So everybody watches all these guys to draft. The Dolphins will draft like 1 or 2% of them. That's about it. And then when they would actually get on the team, guys like Omar would say, so what's going on with this guy? Oh, I don't pay attention until they do something. But you spent your entire quarter, like 3 months, studying 400 guys, of which 98% aren't even on the team you cover. And now you don't care about the 7 that were drafted? Give me a freaking break. That's one thing that always annoys me about the draft in general and the coverage of the draft, especially when it's done by local media and beat writers of teams. I get it for the NFL as a whole and Mel Kiper, because they're not following or covering a certain team. They're covering the whole NFL, but it's different. When you're a beat writer, just focus on the guys that are actually on the team. You don't have to obsess over 300 or 400 guys that aren't going to be on the team.
I just have a problem with all the arguing that goes on Twitter. And Ron, we've been a part of that. That one guy who you were arguing with him about Reggie Ragland, and people take it so personally.
Yeah, they do.
Like if you speak out against a guy they like, or if you don't think he's a fit and they think he's a fit, and people just go off. Everyone's just an expert on it, so it gets old. And Kevin applied sending my name for to possibly cover the draft because it's in Chicago. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if I want to go because it sounds like it's a zoo in terms of the media. And like, what am I going to do? Like, I'm not the kind of personality where I'm just going to fight through all of these people just so I can sit there and get within, I can put a hand on Roger Goodell or something like that. Like, I don't care.
I wouldn't want to do that anyway. I wouldn't want to put a hand on him.
Well, that one guy we talked to, Zach, they went to the draft in 2012, and I guess they were like heckling Roger Goodell to the point where he came over.
He gets heckled all the time now.
And they snapped a great picture of him.
I'm thinking about
going. He's like approaching them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about going, but you got it wrong. I mean, obviously you cover the Dolphins stuff you can, but the whole point going is you got to really boo the Jets picks. That's what I go for.
Nice.
I would do that. I would. I'll wear Dolphin stuff when I'm there, and Bears fans aren't going to really care. You'll have some who will complain about the whole 1985 thing, but not my problem. I won that game, so I don't know. As long as I'm not wearing Packers stuff in that place, I'm fine.
Well, why would you unless you had a death wish?
Well, I wouldn't, but we went downtown for my friend's bachelor party during the draft last year. We went down that Friday, and he's like Mr. Green Bay Packers. So he and his brother were downtown wearing all this Packers crap and everything. And we went to one place where I was certain that the locals there were going to beat the hell out of those guys, to the point where I was just like, I'm with them, but I'm not with them. So do what you must.
It's like I'm here, but I'm really not. So if you're throwing them under the bus, huh, Keith?
Well, yeah, I'm not getting caught up. I'm not getting beaten up in the name of the Green Bay Packers. No way.
I understand.
That's insanity.
The draft talk can be pretty overwhelming. It's like I didn't even really want to talk about the draft today because it's just there's so much. It's the oversaturation is for real. Like I saw some people saying I'm really tired of talking about the draft. I just want to see the draft happen, and I think that's where I've pretty much gotten to at this point.
I think it's fun to speculate. I think it's fun to to think about players, college players, wearing your favorite team's uniform, playing for your favorite team at a high level. All that stuff is cool. And I mean, if you're lucky and you have a good enough feel for the team, you can usually get within a decent range. There was a while there where, I mean, I'm not like bragging or anything, but I had a good enough handle on what Jeff Ireland wanted to do that I think I called his pick every year except for Jared Odrick. I didn't get that one right. But like when Vontae Davis was out Bill in 2009, I had a really good feeling that Jeff Ireland was going to go after him if he was available. So for a while, and I knew that he was going to draft Patrick Turner because I did not like Patrick Turner as a receiver, and I knew that Jeff Ireland couldn't draft receivers to save his life. So I'm like, I figured that he was going to take that guy, and he did. So, I mean, but that's luck too. I mean, like, and that's not anything you can brag about. Although, I mean, you can go on Twitter and just like, but I did, and I will. Fine, I'll throw it up like a badge. I don't care. But it's fun to talk about. And if you're with a bunch of like-minded people who are interested in the same team, you can get some pretty interesting discussions out of it. But I mean, Ron's right. I mean, 98% of the guys you look at aren't going to be on your team anyway. So, I mean, if you want to look at it as wasted time, then yeah, it's a pretty discouraging endeavor.
It can get pretty tiring after a while.
Oh, for sure. It gets old so fast, especially if you start this talk. I think the first McShay mock draft goes up in like mid-December or something. That is a long time to sit there and hover like buzzards.
Well, those guys, but those guys don't have any. Those guys don't have anything better to do. Like they literally only exist to cover the draft. So, I mean, what else can they do?
That's true. I mean, there are a lot of guys who, I mean, and that's their passion, and that's cool. I mean, if you're that into it that you want to follow these, it's like people who follow high school players. Like my friend, and I just mentioned the Tar Heels guy. He also loves Notre Dame football, which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me that he likes one school for one sport and one school for another. But he's like big into that national recruiting day, that signing day and whatnot. I mean, there are people who live for that kind of stuff, and I mean it's okay, but I just don't really care. I mean, so few of those players are going to end up, even competing for like top draft spots anyway.
Yeah. Okay, guys, I think we're going to actually call this a night. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. We want to thank Troy Drayton for coming on with us. So we'll see you all next week for another edition of the PhinManiacs.com podcast.